And Pressbox presents a Zoom interview with Stan the Fan. Normally, Ross Grimsley is with me as well. Ross is in Indiana, and I've explained to our guest, Mike Devereaux, that Ross Grimsley and his wife, Bird, lost somebody very near and dear to them. Bird's mom passed away in Indiana. So he sends along his regards, Mike, but he can't be here tonight. We
Yes, my
understand why.
condolences go out to Ross and Bird and their family.
Yeah.
So sorry about that, to hear that.
That is, it's sad. It's sad. And
Yeah.
Ross, you hear all the jokes about mother-in-laws. Ross was very close to his mother-in-law.
Yeah.
He got along and she loved him, which isn't always the problem. I was blessed. I had a mother-in-law that loved me.
I'm blessed the same way. My
You
mother-in-law
got,
loves
yeah,
me.
okay. Sounds good. Hey, normally I would talk to you specifically just about your Oriole career, but in researching and reading a little bit and catching up on Mike Devereaux's career, I got to tell you, I know you were from an oddball place, Casper, Wyoming, and I got to find out why your family was in Casper, Wyoming. But you were an amazing high school athlete. Four sports: track and field, baseball, basketball, and football. And I have a feeling that you were kind of world class in anything you played.
Yeah, it was fun growing up in Wyoming. And the good thing about it is in the winter, you had to play other sports if that's what you're into. And so got the opportunity to play all four sports. And my senior in high school, we won state in all four. So it was pretty fun.
Well,
We
including
got the opportunity to play football or run track and baseball because we didn't have a high school baseball team. It was just American Legion baseball.
now
So that gave me the
track and
opportunity for that extra sport.
the track and field. You in your senior year, you set in the tournament. You set records, state records in the 100-yard dash, the 200-yard dash, the 400-yard dash, and the high jump. Is that why didn't you enter the pole vaulting or something like that? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And you set state records in all of those. And I think a bunch of them still stand, Mike.
Yeah, at least one still stands. We also set the state record in the half-mile relay. But it ended up being a long day when you had to run preliminaries and semifinals and finals in every event. So you're running pretty much all day long and you're running sprints all day. But it was fun. I love track. I love the fact of being out there on the field, especially when it's warm. But it's not always warm in Wyoming, and there's some cold days out in the spring and track. That's not fun at all.
First of all, why was your family in Wyoming? I mean, was your dad out there for business or?
Well, my father, he was in the Army. Once he got out of the
Okay.
Army, he was an electrical engineer.
Okay.
And he got a job for the government, for the Bureau of Reclamation, which sent us out to Wyoming. So I have three other siblings, and I'm the baby. So my sister's the oldest, so she's the only one that was not born in Wyoming. The rest of us were born and raised totally in Wyoming. We never left until we went to school.
Is there still any family connection out there? Do you have any relatives? No? Okay.
Just friends out there now. So we left there. Each of us left when we went to college. And then my parents left probably shortly after that. And they haven't really been back.
Okay. So tell me, out of those four sports, was baseball, and I read a little what you said at the time when you were doing this interview in Wyoming. Baseball was always your favorite sport? Was it by far and away your favorite sport, or did you have a pro option in basketball or football?
I think I had probably an option in football, but not necessarily basketball or track. But with baseball, I mean, first of all, it was summer.
Right.
And I love the warm weather coming out of those cold winters in Wyoming. But my father managed me from the very beginning up until I was 16 years old. And it was so much more of a family atmosphere when it comes to baseball. I played with my brothers. My father was the manager, and it was unique because it was the only place to be in the summertime. So everybody hung out at the ballparks. There's nowhere else to be. So baseball was definitely my favorite.
It's really interesting. I don't recall ever hearing somebody talk about their preference for baseball over the other sports by saying, I love the family atmosphere. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, I still love it today when I coach my son. It's the families that are out there. There's a bunch of baseball around. There's a bunch of kids. There's a bunch of playing. Just it's family.
Now, in Casper, Wyoming, I'm not trying to be funny. Were there many African American players out there?
There was more than you would think. I grew up. It's so funny because my parents' best friends had they're black and they had 3 sons and there's 3 other sons. I mean, there were more than there are now. Well, I don't know. I haven't been up there in a while, but there's more than you would think. More than you would think.
All right. Now, in college, you're playing at Arizona State University, and you get drafted after, I guess, your junior year by the Cleveland Indians in the 26th round. You elected to go back for your senior year, and you ended up getting picked in the 5th round the next year by the Dodgers. How much better a player were you for having gone back that last year?
I think that's the best thing I could have done. I mean, when I signed in the 26th round, I believe it was for like $5,000. So it wouldn't have made a difference. I might as well go ahead and try to finish school. And then even if I signed for $3,000, it wouldn't have made that big a difference. And I ended up, going a little higher in the rounds. But yes, even today, from coaching minor leagues, you see the difference between guys that have played those extra years in college ball. And that goes with growing up, becoming more of an adult, living by yourself and understanding, just the aspects of life before you go on your own.
So you turn pro with the Dodgers and you played in the minor leagues. You were managed in AA and AAA, I think, in AAA at Albuquerque by Terry Collins. Pretty good skipper for AAA. I know he was young and fiery back then, just before he managed the Angels, I think, were his first team managing, or was Houston his first job?
I'm not quite sure. I know it was one of the two, but he's been coaching or managing for a long time. And that's one thing. Terry, I mean, he was a great manager. And I was really expecting to be on the AAA squad the previous year in 86. 86. I was hoping to make that AAA squad, and I didn't make it. No, actually, I was 87, and I didn't make it. And Terry was one that came up to me and let me know exactly how it was. Hey, you just go ahead and do your job. I wanted you, but this is probably best for you. And I want to head out there and played. And then once I got back, when I got to AAA that next year, he was great. I mean, he's very fiery. He got his players going, and I can definitely understand how he ended up with the career he had.
Well, that sort of set the stage for you. You played for a lot of big time managers. You played for Terry Collins at AAA. Mm-hmm. Then you go to the major leagues and you got Tommy Lasorda. And in your was 88 your first full season in the big leagues, or you were up part of 87, right?
I started out in 87, my call-up year, my debut. Played a couple months in 88, and then 89 was my first full season. And
that was in Baltimore. But 88, you were a useful player for Tommy Lasorda, and that was the year you guys beat the vaunted Oakland A's with the Kirk Gibson home run. So you got ring number 1 there, right?
Yes, I did. And it's funny because, Mickey Hatcher, he wasn't an everyday player, but, he played a lot. And we had a group of guys that we called the stunt man. We had T-shirts and everything because we didn't get any credit for anything. Not that I personally did a lot, but obviously in the National League, you always come in late in the games. There is something you can do to contribute to winning the ball game, and that's what made it fun there.
So now in spring training the next year in 89, March 12th of 89, you get traded for right-handed pitcher Mike Morgan, who had been like a bonus baby drafted originally by the Oakland A's. So you come to Baltimore, and your first manager in Baltimore is Frank Robinson. What kind of impact did Frank have on your career, and how jarring was that to get traded right in the middle of spring training?
Well, when it comes to being traded in spring training, I just wanted to play ball, first of all. And I remember that day we're in Kissimmee. And, being a minor league player, we go on all the road trips. And we always play because the big leaguers, they only play a couple innings early, and then they get out of the game. And I was the only one on the bench, the only player on the bench. And from that, the trainers were looking at me and wondering why I'm in the game. The trainer's like, you're gone. You're traded. There's no reason for you not to play this game.
Right.
And sure enough, I was. And to go to a team like Baltimore and to have Frank Robinson as a manager, I mean, you really can't do any better than that. You know, a Hall of Famer, you know, MVP, both leagues, and for somebody to learn from somebody like that, even though it wasn't that easy to learn from him, but it was total respect, and I understood it was total respect.
Yeah.
And you wanted to do well for him.
But it's interesting you say that Frank was a positive to come into Baltimore, but you had to think, I mean, isn't that the team that just last season, 1988, lost their first 21 games, lost over 100? Now, we know what the 89 season ended up being, but March 12th, I guess, on the way to Fort Lauderdale or wherever we were training then, I got to think it was still Miami, Bobby Maduro Stadium in 89.
Yeah.
I got to think you're saying, geez, I'm not that thrilled about coming to Baltimore, but you're saying you were pretty juiced to come into Baltimore.
That did, you know, I knew that they'd lost the first 21 games of the season the previous year, and just coming off a World Series with the Dodgers, but that didn't cross my mind at all. I mean, I understood how seasons can go either way. So I came into Baltimore with nothing but straight positivity and just hoping for the best, and just went out there to play hard. I knew it was a young team, but I just didn't look at coming into a losing team. That never crossed my mind.
You know, it's interesting. They celebrated something to do with the 89 team last year at Camden Yards. They had a bunch of the players in, and they had a press conference. And I remember every pitcher, Malacky, Ballard, and I'm trying to think who the other starters were, they all alluded to how much better the outfield defense was in 89 compared to 88. And I'm guessing that had a little something to do with you and Phil Bradley and Brady a little bit. But it sounded like that really impacted the entire team, was the outfield's ability to catch the baseball.
Yeah, and Orsolak was there also. And,
yep.
You know, the pitchers, you know, they got on the hill, they threw strikes. So we're always on our toes. And we made it a point to try not to let anything fall. And, you know, we understood that we were not a power team. We weren't going to go up there and beat guys at the plate hitting home runs and all that. But we understood that, hey, let's stop them from scoring. Let's not allow them to get hits. And with that said, that made the pitchers have more confidence in themselves. So the pitchers threw great. You know, they're always around the plate. You know, there wasn't a lot of walks. There weren't a lot of pitching around guys unless they really, really had to. So we're always ready to play. And that made it, you know, one of the most fun seasons I've ever had.
Would you say that 89 was – now you won 2 World Series, in 88 with the Dodgers and 95 with Atlanta. But I have a feeling that 89 was probably your most fun season, maybe 92 in Camden Yards, the opening of Camden Yards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it. I'm coming into my first full year in 89. I didn't know that I made the team. So I had no idea. And I'm trying to wait for Frank to say something to me one way or the other, because I have no clue whatsoever. And I know we had these exhibition games in D.C., so I ended up getting on the plane, going to D.C., but still, they still had to get 3 more guys, 4 more guys, whatever it was. And I still didn't know. But he never told me I didn't make the team, so I got on the bus to go to Baltimore. So I ended up being on the team. But you're right. I mean, for a rookie team, and for us to come out, first of all, they said that Clemens was going to throw a no-hitter against us.
Right.
The worst team ever, youngest team, worst team ever. And I was like, man, I know Clemens is good, but he's that good? But we came out there and won that first game. And from what I understand, you know, that was the type of game we'd lose every year back in the 88 season. But I wasn't there, so it never crossed my mind. But to have the streaks that we had and to have the fun that it is so fun winning. And to have that fun where everybody contributed to the game, and to go on and on to that last series in Toronto, you know, even with winning the World Series in LA, you know, I played early in April there, then I was September call up, then win the World Series in Atlanta. That was fun too. Don't get me wrong, that was really fun. But I was traded partway through the season there. But being Baltimore the whole way, the only thing we would have topped that off if we would have won that series in Toronto.
Now, I want to move on a little bit, but twice you've alluded to Frank being less than warm and fuzzy and communicative with you. You respected Frank an awful lot. Were you one of the guys that was able to break through that veneer? Because I understand if you ended up sort of busting him a little bit back, you won his respect, and then it was a warm relationship.
Yeah.
Did you have that warm relationship with Frank?
I did, and that's the thing. He enjoyed that too. If he came at you, you got to come at him a little bit, but it was all respectful. And the thing about Frank is, it's from my standpoint, is that I know he wanted me to do well, along with all the other players too. And I know that's his main objective, was for his players to play at the best of their ability. And so that's, you'd strike out and you'd come back to the dugout, you look at him, his head would be down, shaking like, I can't believe you did that. And, you'd almost like kind of laugh inside, but it'd piss you off too. But when and then when you do something well, he's like, well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Hey, I got to ask you a question about '89. Now, you may not even know this or remember this aspect of it. I know you'll remember the home run, the one that went around the foul pole.
Right.
That won that game on, I think it was a Saturday night. I was traveling. I was out in California.
Oh, you missed
but
it.
The next day, there was a big argument. Doug Rader was the manager of the Angels at the time. And after the game, he argued 10 minutes that was a foul ball. I know you'll say it was fair, but do you remember the details about Frank getting thrown out not Frank, Doug Rader. Thrown out before the game even started, with the umpires exchanging the lineup cards. Do you know the story about that?
I remember it all happening. I know he was going to get thrown out regardless, because they argued. I didn't realize how much they argued at the end of the game until I saw the replays on how much they argued. But I don't know the entire story on that.
I can't say I'm comfortable telling the exact story, but basically, Doug Rader thanked the home plate umpire for removing himself from a sexual act with Frank to come out to do the lineup cards, and he tossed him before the game even started.
I knew it was something quick.
It was Doug Rader was very funny guy. Let's move up to the '91 season kind of quickly. That's the last season in Memorial Stadium's history. You've only been with the team a couple of years, but was that a special season too? Seeing how warm everybody was about all the history that went on at Camden Yards.
At
Memorial Stadium.
Now this is my third year, so I'm much more established in Baltimore.
Yep.
And at Camden Yards, and at Memorial Stadium, and going to the ballpark and being at the ballpark and traveling to the ballpark and just the atmosphere of the games there. And, from understanding the history of Baltimore in that stadium, I felt more part of it from that aspect of it. So that 91 year was very, very special to me. A point to where you understood. You started to understand the feelings that everybody had for Memorial Stadium. I mean, it's in a residential area, and I didn't know that until that particular year when I started feeling it. And I started when the days started counting down, even months before the end of the season, you could kind of get that feeling of how much respect everybody had, and how much history and how many memories were made in that ballpark.
How was the last day? Charles Steinberg, of course, gets the most credit. He was then the PR director of the team, but he gets most credit for putting that whole thing and orchestrating the farewell to Memorial Stadium. You must have sat there and just been in awe of all the pomp and ceremony and all the players that made being an Oriole at that ballpark so special.
Yeah, Charles did an absolute tremendous job on that ceremony. And as players, I mean, we didn't know what was going on. We knew there was going to be a huge celebration. We understand all that, but we don't know everything that was going into it. And then when they started calling these players out one at a time, and you see people crying in the stands, and then you're excited because, I mean, I was a kid. I've watched these players play, and, you know, I get just excited. It doesn't matter that I'm on the field playing the game. I'm seeing these guys, and I feel like a kid myself when I see these guys come out there and I see their reactions and their feelings from being on the stadium. And even when I go into Camden Yards now, I get those feelings because that was my yard. That was where I played. And I can understand it now. But at that point, I didn't quite understand that side of it. But I understand the fact that these are some of my heroes, the guys I watched playing, and I saw the feelings within them.
The flip side of 91 now is you got to open one of the most spectacular ballparks at the time, and it still is. It really did change the game in a lot of ways. 92 was by far your best season in the big leagues. You knocked in 107 runs. You hit 24 home runs, 276 average, had the on-base percentage a little bit better than your career. So was it the ballpark? Was that great a place to hit? Was it the fact that every night you were playing before a sellout? What led into such a great season there?
Well, I remember when we left to go to spring training, we left from Camden Yards, and it wasn't close to being finished. And I was like, wow, we're going to be gone for 6 weeks. There's no way. We're supposed to start this in the stadium in 6 weeks? And we come back after 6 weeks and had a few beers in the plane, of course. And I remember I was standing next to Brady, and we go through the clubhouse, which is something that we'd never seen ever before in any clubhouse I'd ever been in. Then we walk down the stairs to the dugout, and there's one bank of lights on, and I swear a tear comes down my eye, and I looked at it, I go, damn, Brady. I called him Barley. Damn, Barley. And he looked at me, and our eyes opened up. We're just looking at this place, and it was incredible. And I think, yes, it was my best season, and I owe it to the fans, to be honest with you, because I love playing in front of a big crowd. I love playing in front of a big crowd, and we sold out every single day. There's not one day I played in Camden Yards when it was not sold out. So when you come to the ballpark and you know for a fact that it's going to be a sellout, and you go out there, you're warming up, you're getting ready to play, and you come back in, to get your little cool down, and then you go back on the field, boom, it's game time, and the crowd is wild, it's crazy, and I love that. I really love that.
Mike, you played 12 years in the big leagues. You were only in Baltimore for 6 years, but I jotted down you were part of the 7th season. You were part of the Why Not season, which is a very special season. You closed Memorial Stadium, the opening of Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and you were part of Cal Ripken's record-breaking 95 when he actually tied and then broke Lou Gehrig's record. But you got to play alongside him for, 7 seasons of baseball, or at least 5 leading up to the 95 breaking.
Yeah.
Did you marvel at what you were watching, or did it hit you sort of that season that he was actually going to tie and break the record?
Well, actually, I was not there in 95.
That's right. You were not. I'm sorry. You were
95. Oh,
I'm sorry. You were not there in 95.
Okay. No, it's funny that you asked that, though, because when I got traded to Baltimore, and I didn't know I didn't know any of the players except for Cal, because coming up through the minor leagues, all you're doing is playing games. You're playing games. You see a few games, but I was concentrating on playing. I knew Cal. I knew about his streak. Well, I knew of Cal, let me put it that way. Yep. I knew of his streak, and I did the counting. I did the multiplication. I added up. I go, wonder how many years it's going to take him to break this record. And I counted it'd come in 7 years. Okay, and I'm 7 years. I'll play here 6 years here, and I go, I'm going to be gone if everything goes. Because after 6 years, you become a free agent.
Yeah.
So sure enough,
go ahead.
Sure enough, after 6 seasons, I left to go to Chicago White Sox and then to Atlanta. But the funny thing, when I was with Chicago, we're playing in.
I don't mind a dog. I don't mind a dog being there. It's very human. So don't worry about that.
I'm playing in Arlington, and we have a rainout the day he breaks the record. The day he breaks the record, we have a rainout in Arlington.
So you
and
got
I
to
go
watch
to my
it.
hotel by myself, kick back with some beer, and watch the entire celebration. And I was like, after all this, playing in Baltimore for 6 years, playing with Cal for 6 years, who's one of the most ultimate guys you can play with.
Yeah.
And then have the opportunity, because of rain, to see the ceremony.
I'm sorry I screwed that up because obviously I got your years you played with the Orioles. Was that leading up to that though? Was that kind of like, God, that's a bummer? Or were you by that time so caught up in playing with Atlanta and the chase, that they were going through?
Well, during the time that he broke the record, I was still in Chicago. So I was still in the American League. So, we played against Baltimore, and I talked to him. We talked, we talked trash to each other and all that. But, total respect for Cal, because it's unbelievable. They talk about records. Out of all these records, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it is, they talk about these records, and they talk about the most difficult one to break. And to be honest with you, I can never see that one being broke. I mean, they talk about, Giorgio of the 56 game hitting streak.
Right.
That can be broken 1 year.
I know. I think that will get broken sometime. Yeah. One other thing, you played behind Mike Mussina for 4 seasons, 4.5 seasons. He went to the Hall of Fame last year. Did you ever have any doubt that he was Hall of Fame worthy?
No, I didn't. I mean, he came in and he competed from Jump Street from when he was young. He went right after the players. He's a very intelligent pitcher. He knew exactly what his plan was going into the game, and he went after it, and he did it. And then he went with New York and did the same thing. And I got to face him, I felt it was easier for me because I'd watched him pitch from the outfield, but it wasn't. But yeah, and that's another thing, being in Baltimore, to watch guys like that and just to compete.
Hey, before we wrap this up, I know we've gone on for a little while, but I do want to talk about what you're doing now. You've been a coach with minor league baseball teams, in organized baseball for the last, about 9 years now, Mike?
It's been 10 years in minor league.
10 years.
Yes.
And this year, you're not in organized baseball. You had taken a new position and working at one of these baseball academies down in Florida. I'm more and more now, that seems to be a big trend, that a lot of the academies are not only producing the best hitters, but they're producing the best teachers that actually catapult you from what you're doing, maybe more toward the major leagues than the old-fashioned way of working your way up to the minors. Tell us why you made the move to the academy approach.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of change has been made in professional baseball when it comes to coaches. They've gotten rid of a lot of the former big league players, and they've gone to the analytical side of it, and gone to data entry and all that, which is fine. I mean, it's a new era. And so I ended up being able to stay at home, and IMG Academy was just right down the street, like 40 minutes away. And I knew some of the coaches down there, and I talked to Dan Simons over there for the opportunity to go, and he invited me to come take a look at it, and I was very impressed with the facility. It is amazing how nice this facility is. We're talking about 6 full baseball fields, 4 half fields, and they're talking about expanding before this coronavirus thing even happened.
Right.
But there's like 180 players. There's 10 teams from 12-year-old all the way up to 18. They have all the technology available.
They've got all the technology equipment there.
You have the blast. You have
video.
Yes, you have all that available for these kids, and that's the way it's going now. I mean, you talk about the generation of players that are up now, and that's what they're doing when they deal with velocity or exit velocity, rotation, and all that, and that's what gets them going. And these players, it's incredible how, I mean, it's an academy, it's school, it's year round, and it's strictly athletics, not just baseball, but it's football, it's basketball, it's track. It's golf, it's soccer, it's lacrosse, tennis. But to see these guys and seeing what they have to work with now, as opposed to what we had to work with, is pretty incredible.
You're really excited about when that could
Yes.
possibly reopen and you could
Yes,
get
and that's
going
going to be
on
tough as far as reopening, because more, I'm throwing this number out there. I think 20% maybe is from overseas. They're from all over the world, and with the travel bans and things like that, and even the travel here in this country is kind of tough. It's going to be hard to get everything back together real quickly.
Hey, last question for you, Mike, and I could go on with you another half hour, but I wanted to ask you a question having to do with the this season and the pandemic. There doesn't appear that there's going to be really organized minor league baseball this year in the same way. I think every team, if they do start a season in the majors, there's going to be a taxi squad or a AAA level team that will be playing to get the replacements when you get injuries. But for a lot of players, this could be almost a missed season. Is that simply something that we say, well, the Oriole prospects like Adley Rushman and our pitchers, Grayson Rodriguez, they're missing, but the Tigers guys are missing, Kansas City's missing? Or is there something you really lose your players lose by losing their season? I'm talking mostly now about the developing players, not the guys that are close to the major leagues.
Right. We're definitely in uncharted territories.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just not one team. Everybody's in the same boat here. So, and I'm sure a lot of these players, especially the big leaguers, but majority of these players do have facilities that they can go to, and they have an idea of what they need to do to stay in shape. And they're not just sitting around doing nothing. I really find that difficult to believe. It's sad that they're going to lose a season, and it will set them back, but I think it sets everybody back the exact same way.
Okay.
And it probably won't even be seen. It won't even be noticed, because it's a group thing. It's not just, the American League or a few teams or whatever. So everybody's has the same issue, but everybody's anxious to get out there and get playing. And the only thing, it's you can't work out the same way as being on the field with the team. So the trainers are going to be working hard this year, I'm sure, because there's probably going to be a lot more injuries, because people are going to come in there not as in good a shape as they really should be. And they're excited to get out there, and they're going to be pushing hard to because of the excitement, because of the adrenaline. But we'll get over this. I'm sure we will. I can't wait for baseball to come back, and hopefully, Players Association and the owners get everything together to get started soon.
Hey, Mike, I really appreciate you spending some time with us on this Press Box Zoom video. People will be able to watch it through all of our social media, Twitter and Facebook, and our website, PressBoxOnline.com. I want to remind folks that every day, Monday through Friday, Glenn Clark and Kyle Ottenheimer are doing the Glenn Clark radio show from 10 to 12. And you can get that by going to PressBoxOnline.com/radio, or you can go to Facebook.com/PressBoxSport. Again, my thanks to Mike Devereaux. Always a pleasure to see you, Mike.
Stan the Fan, thank you. It's definitely a pleasure being here. Thanks, everybody in Baltimore.